Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today's host and the morning anchor on NBC4 and NBC Washington Nonstop, Eun Yang.
Good afternoon and thank you. I am delighted to welcome each and every one of you to the National Partnership for Women and Families 2012 Annual Luncheon. This is my fourth time hosting this event, and I am very glad to be back. I am a working mother of three, very busy and very exhausted. Thank you. A part of the NBC Washington family, and I feel like part of the National Partnership family as well with all of you. And I hope that, like me, you feel at home here today. I have always marveled at the National Partnership's accomplishments, from outlawing pregnancy discrimination and sexual harassment on the job, to passing the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act, to winning paid sick days in Connecticut, Seattle, and right here in the District of Columbia, to working for quality, affordable health care for every person. I marvel too at how these fights continue, how achievements from the past need to be won again in the present. But like you, I feel confident about the final outcomes because the National Partnership for Women and Families is leading so many of these critical fights. And we all know that this organization will not rest until all our workplaces are fair and family-friendly and everyone has access to quality, affordable health care. We have a lot of wonderful speakers today, and most especially our inspiring honoree, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. She will be with us very soon. I know many of you might be hungry right now, but I ask that you bear with us for a few minutes as we get the program underway. Trust me, it will be well worth the wait. It is now my pleasure to welcome the corporate co-chair of this event, Pam Daly, who is Senior Vice President, Corporate Business Development at GE and a longtime friend and generous supporter of the National Partnership. Pam Daly.
Thank you, Eun. Together with my co-chair, Lisa Caputo of Travelers, I'm delighted to be here to honor Secretary Clinton, a hero, certainly one of my heroes, and an inspiration to women and girls and indeed people all around the world, and also here to celebrate the work of the National Partnership. As you probably know, GE's been around for a long time, over 130 years. Indeed, we're the only surviving company in the original Dow Jones Industrial Average. We were founded by Thomas Edison, probably the most prolific and productive inventor in history. But in 1918, he did something that would forever change the face of GE. He hired Catherine Blodgett. Katie was the first female PhD to receive a PhD in physics from Cambridge, and she was the first woman scientist to join our research lab. When she retired some 45 years later, she had made groundbreaking discoveries in a field today we know as nanotechnology, the science measured in a billionth of a meter. Today, GE can proudly claim 10,000 female engineers, scientists, and technologies. But in those days, a female scientist was unique. That never deterred Katie. In a radio interview, she described her days at the lab by saying, "They consist mostly in tackling problems to which I used to say I can't, and I usually find that they are not so difficult as I thought they would be." Well, no one would claim that the issues that the National Partnership has tackled turned out to be not so difficult as we thought. But tough fights have never stopped the National Partnership. You have been at the forefront of every major advance for women over the last 40 years. And in countless ways, you've made the workplace more family-friendly and helped women and men balance the dual demands of work and family. When it comes to the most important issues, just like Katie, the word can't is just not in the National Partnership's vocabulary. So thank you all for supporting the National Partnership. With your help, today's event has raised more than $1 million. And needless to say, because of your generosity, women's futures and the future of our country have never been brighter.
Thank you so much, Pam. Now I am delighted to introduce a woman who is very busy in 2012. Ellen Malcolm chairs the board of directors of both the National Partnership and of Emily's List, an organization that she founded. She has devoted her life to empowering women and giving us a voice in government. And even though she is in such huge demand this year, as always, Ellen wanted to be with us here today. Please join me in welcoming Ellen Malcolm.
Thank you, Ann. It's wonderful to have you as our MC again this year and to see you at a more civilized hour than when you greet us over coffee in the morning paper. And I want to thank Pam Daly and Lisa Caputo for your tireless work as co-chairs. I also want to thank the board of directors and the staff of the National Partnership for putting together this fantastic event and for the work they do every single day. As chair of the board, As chair of the board of the National Partnership for Women and Families, I love greeting you every year. Last year, we celebrated this organization's 40th anniversary. We talked about how much the country had changed since the days when Richard Nixon was president, when women had few choices, few rights, and few options, and when we fought a different kind of war, the war in Vietnam. Now in 2012, Barack Obama is our president, and women have many more rights and options. But surprisingly, we find ourselves engaged in a new war, a tremendous fight to protect and expand our rights and options. It's a war between those who want to take us backwards to the days of Nixon and beyond, and those who want to continue the progress of the last several decades. Women and families have so much at risk. Will women finally get fair pay? Will paid leave and paid sick days become a reality for all workers? Will our healthcare system take care of us when we are sick? Will our right to choose abortion and even to access affordable birth control finally and irrevocably be secure? This political confrontation is a war that the partnership, under the skilled and savvy leadership of our President, Deborah Ness, fights every day on our behalf. We need the partnership more now than ever. And I want to thank you for being a part of our Women 2012 mobilization. Well, every fight, every struggle needs a hero. In the midst of one of our toughest battles, an unexpected hero, Sandra Fluke, stepped forward. Under personal assault by one of the most bombastic voices of talk radio, Sandra responded with clarity, courage, and intelligence. She gave us tremendous confidence that the coming generation of women has what it takes to protect our rights. So it is my great personal pleasure to introduce and thank the one person who has done what we have all wanted to do. The one person who has been able to hush rush. Please welcome Sandra Fluke.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome. And thank you, Ellen and Un and Deborah. I'm so glad and honored to be here with you all today. I have to say that at the age of 31, it's humbling to accept recognition from an organization that has been fighting for women like me for over 40 years. So I feel there's a lot more I have yet to do to really deserve that. But I suppose that, you know, the last few months for me have been eventful. And sometimes people do ask me how I'm doing now that, you know, things are back to normal. And I appreciate that concern very much, but I have to say that I'm troubled by the idea that anything is back to normal. It's not normal when women's access to reproductive health care is attacked every day. And it's not normal when it's controversial to assert that women should have affordable access to birth control. And it's not normal when state after state enacts restrictions on our right to choose. And it's not normal when those in power try to deny our own ability to make our own healthcare decisions based on nothing more than where we live or where we work or where we go to school. And it's not normal when women's access to healthcare is under constant, unrelenting attack. But make no mistake, there are those who want to make that the new normal in this country. Well, that's not the country that my generation deserves, and that's not the country that I intend to leave to the next generation. So I pledge that I will continue standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be silenced or intimidated, no matter what our opponents may say or do. And I know that by being here today and supporting one of the most effective organizations in this fight, that you are also committed to doing the same. So I thank the National Partnership and all of you who support this wonderful organization for fighting every single day for women's health. Thank you so very much.
Sandra, thank you, and Ellen, thank you as well. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce someone who really needs no introduction. Our next speaker is a woman with extraordinary depth of knowledge about critically important women's and health issues, a tireless work ethic, a passion for fairness, justice, and measures that will make life better for women and families. National Partnership President Deborah Ness is a brilliant advocate, a peerless persuader, and an inspirational leader, and a wonderful friend. She fights day and night for programs and policies that will make women, families, and our country stronger, and we are lucky that she has so many skills, so much savvy, that most of the time she wins. Please join me in welcoming National Partnership of Women and Families President Deborah Ness.
It's great to see all of you. And thank you, Un. You're terrific, and you are a part of our family. There's a Japanese proverb that says, the secret to success in life is simple. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. Seems like good advice for us today. Who would have thought that in 2012, we'd be arguing over providing contraception for women? Or debating the idea of equal pay, that in one area after another, we'd be relitigating issues we thought had been settled 50 years ago. And yet, here we are. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. And as I look out at you, I see so many of you who are ready to stand up for women and families. And standing up for women and families is what the National Partnership does every day. It's what your support enables us to do. And together, we make a difference. The Supreme Court will soon have its say. But today, we say health care reform was the right decision for America, especially for America's women. It matters that health reform go forward By 2014, almost 19 million more women will have access to affordable, comprehensive health care. Women will stop being charged higher premiums simply because they are women. Women will no longer be turned down for coverage because their breast cancer or C-section is a pre-existing condition. And while Rush Limbaugh may have attacked an eloquent young woman for speaking out about contraception, that basic part of women's health care is now the law of the land, and we will fight to keep it that way. Women also know all too well how frustrating and dangerous it is when doctors don't talk to each other or have the right information. As the caregivers for our families, we bear the brunt of our uncoordinated healthcare system. The promise of healthcare reform is the promise that those days are coming to an end. It is a promise that we will stand up for no matter what the Supreme Court decides. We must also stand up for the same kind of progress in our workplaces. The Family and Medical Leave Act has now been used more than 100 million times. But 20 years later, half the workforce still isn't eligible, and millions can't afford to take the unpaid leave it provides. And today, more than 40 million workers don't have even a single paid sick day. And it's disgraceful that 49 years after the Equal Pay Act, women are still paid less than men. And it's even worse for women of color and women who are moms. The average woman brings home almost $11,000 less a year than a man. And that adds up to about 172 tanks of gas or nearly 2 years' worth of groceries. And yet 2 weeks ago, Congress rejected legislation that would make it easier to fight pay discrimination. It's time to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act. And did you know that pregnancy discrimination claims in this country are going up, not down? It's time to pass the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. So yes, we have plenty to stand up and fight for. And trust me, we don't need more overheated rhetoric from cable TV folks who blather on about mommy wars or which politicians care most about women. Spare us the sanctimony and hypocrisy of politicians who praise moms and caregivers while burying every effort to help them. We need to see this talk as the dangerous distraction it is. Action and results are what we need and what we at the National Partnership will keep on fighting for. Today, I am deeply honored to introduce a special guest for whom advancing the cause of women and families has been the work of her life. From her early days with the Children's Defense Fund to her valiant work on health care and her success in creating the Children's Health Insurance Program. From her powerful advocacy for women and children around the world to those 18 million cracks her historic campaign put in the glass ceiling, Hillary Clinton has truly changed our world. I know she's an inspiration to millions. She certainly is a hero and a role model to me. And whether I'm talking about Hillary to my amazing 31-year-old daughter or to my wonderful, loving mom who's here with me today, they both light up. I see that look in their eyes. That same look I now see in your eyes as you anticipate what's next. So now, I ask you all to turn your eyes to the screens around the room and enjoy.
generous, interesting, and inspiring.
She lives by a mantra that I think is just so great. And it is, I'm just going to get up every day and do the best I can. Watching Hillary do the juggle has been an ongoing lesson to me. I marvel at her bandwidth.
I definitely want to do something important with my life, and I think she's definitely done that.
Service is the rent we pay for living, and that is how Hillary has lived her life.
She believed in this idea that we must respect the dignity and the worth of every human being.
As she said, women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights.
She is like a messenger for women. She conveys the messages from one country to the other.
She is a master of reaching out to people and bringing individuals into her.
The way she understands and relates to you is in a very humble way and very human way and quite disarming, when you meet her.
Hillary has been a great source of inspiration to young girls all across America and around the world.
She's an inspiration to girls because she's very powerful and she's gotten that way doing what she believes in and following her dreams.
My daughter is going to be so much better off because of everything that Hillary has done. My grandchildren will be so much better off because of everything that Hillary has done. I'm better off. My mother's better off because of all that Hillary has done.
If I could give Hillary Clinton a message, I would say thank you for doing everything you've done. You've helped, so many people. You're a great role model, and you are for many other people. Just keep trying to spread this movement of human rights to other countries. Keep fighting. Keep doing what you do.
Hillary, you're extraordinary. You're exceptional, and I know you call all of us who are so close to you and have worked for you for so long and continue to work for you every day. You call us your girls, but really, you're our girl, Hillary.
Thank you, Hillary.
Ladies and gentlemen, our friend and America's Secretary of State, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Oh my, wow. Oh, I am thrilled to see this ballroom packed on behalf of the National Partnership. I very much appreciated that stirring video and the reminder of all the hairstyles over so many years. A real walk down memory lane. And there is nothing better than hearing from champions of freedom and human dignity like Elabot and John Lewis. And there are so many people for me to thank. I guess I should start by thanking my friend and longtime colleague, Judy Lichtman, for her pioneering work
You know, Judy and I have been at this a really long time. What she has done for decades has really convinced me that she never gives up, she never stops fighting for what she believes in. She used to call me when I was still in Arkansas and, you know, in that very persuasive voice of hers say, this is what we have to do and this is what we have to do, and she has gotten it done. And she's the one who called me many months ago and said, would you come to the National Partnership Luncheon and let so many of your friends and the next generation of activists honor you? And of course I said yes. And then my schedule got a little upended. And I'm supposed to be in Brazil right now at the Rio +20 event. And I said, you know, I'm really sorry. I will get there in the middle of the night. I will leave the lunch. I will go to the airport. I will fly 11 hours, but I cannot cancel on the National Partnership. So here I am. I want to thank Deborah Ness for her leadership of this great organization. Deborah has such a passion and commitment and is so convincing on the issues that she was just reviewing. And for me, it is truly about the next generation. And Sandra, congratulations, and I want to thank the middle school students from the Edmund Burke School who we saw in the video. I want to thank my dear friend and colleague, Lisa Caputo, for her excellent narration, but more than that, for her years of work with me and on behalf of causes we care about. And I want to thank all of you who are here today. I see long-standing champions for women and families, like Pam Daly, the lunch co-chair from General Electric, along with Lisa, like On Yang, our MC, and like my friend Ellen Malcolm, who has helped bring so many women's voices into our political system, into the debates of our country. And I particularly am pleased that the National Partnership has here today the next generation of women leaders and those brave men who know that the partnership stands for a better America, not just for women and families, but for all Americans. And it is a model advocacy for groups like it around the world. You know, I remember so well, many years ago now, being pregnant with Chelsea, working at a law firm where there was no set policy for parental leave because there had never been a pregnant lawyer. And I used to watch the men I was working with as I got more and more pregnant just kind of avert their eyes. And they never really had a conversation with me about, well, what would happen? And one of them, in the interest, I think, of trying to be funny and relate to me, called me the morning after I'd had my daughter and said, oh, when are you coming back to work? And I said, oh, I don't know, about 4 months from now. Oh, okay, he said, because they didn't know any better. But I was aware then, as I have been every year since, that millions of other women didn't have that opportunity. And fortunately for all of us, the National Partnership drafted the Family and Medical Leave Act, pushed it through Congress, and onto my husband's desk when he was president, ensuring that at least the first step toward recognizing the importance of providing parents the opportunity to balance work and family would be enshrined in law. Now, we have so much more work to be done. Deborah gave you some of the unfinished business that lies ahead. But the Family and Medical Leave Act is just one example of what this organization has done over the last 4 decades of service. The work of advocacy can and often is incremental, maybe even glacial, but over years of effort, it can carve out a world of difference. And in nearly every country I visit, I meet with civil society groups working on behalf of women and families and communities. And sometimes they are just learning about the power of advocacy. Many times, in many places, they're facing barriers that we faced 50 years ago. And I give them the same advice that I would give my younger self or any young person hoping to make change in our world. Get organized, get involved, and don't let anyone tell you it can't be done. Because advocating for women, for children, for people with disabilities, for any marginalized group, needs to be a lifelong mission and hopefully a passion. From my early years as a young lawyer with the Children's Defense Fund, from my time in Arkansas to the White House to my service in New York in the Senate, and now as Secretary of State, I see the results of persistent, passionate advocacy. Nothing replaces it. And very often there is that moment when hope and history rhyme and results actually happen. I am more convinced than ever that this is not just simply a matter of human rights or women's rights, but it is essential to prosperity and security, to build a more inclusive world, to bring people off the sidelines into the arena who before had been relegated to the back. We won't be able to move forward on any of our larger strategic goals or improve our own national security at home unless we take on one of the most basic sources of instability and strife in our world. In too many places, a gathering like this would not even be possible. All over the world, women and children still face antiquated legal and cultural obstacles. Extremists of all stripes still try to constrain and control women. How we dress, how we act, what we believe, even the decisions we make about our own health and bodies. So it's no coincidence that many of the places where we see the most instability and conflict are also places where women are abused and denied their rights, young people are ignored, minorities are persecuted, and civil society is curtailed. And those are not just symptoms of instability. They actually undermine societies, regional and global stability as well. By the same token, it's also no coincidence that many of our closest allies and most important trading partners are countries that embrace pluralism and tolerance, equal rights and equal opportunities. Because these are not Western values. They are universal values. So it is profoundly in our interest to help those who have been historically excluded become full participants in the economic, social, and political lives of their countries. Otherwise, we can look into a future of the same cycles of conflict and volatility. Now, this is not just me talking, and it's not just because I came to the position of Secretary of State, having spent a lot of my adult life advocating on behalf of women and children, the evidence to support what I'm saying is clear. Data show that investing in women's employment, health, and education drives better outcomes for entire societies. Economists tell us that when more women participate in the economy, there is a ripple effect. Businesses have more consumers, families both spend and save more, farmers produce and sell more food, education improves, and so does political stability. So this is not just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing. Women have skills and practical knowledge that enrich discussions about peace and security. In one of my favorite examples of this in recent times, there was a recent negotiation over how to end part of the long, terrible conflict in Darfur. And the men in the room spent days arguing over who would get territory around a certain river. Finally, a woman outside the door said, "That river's been dry for years." Because after all, it wasn't men that went looking for water every day, it was women. So we have to find more ways to tap the vast talents and resources of half the population in the world. We need governments and people in every country to commit to improving the rights and opportunities of women. That's why at the State Department, I've instructed our leadership in Washington and at embassies around the world to prioritize advancing rights and opportunities for women. We are working to increase women's political participation, strengthen their economic position, ensure that women have a seat at every table, including tables that discuss peace and security. We're also taking on entrenched discrimination and cultural attitudes that class women as less than men. And we are taking steps to institutionalize this progress so that future secretaries of state can keep it going and growing and encourage other nations to follow suit. For example, last September, I joined leaders from across the Asia-Pacific for the first ever APEC, that's Asia-Pacific Economic Community, Ministerial for Women and the Economy. Following this meeting, every participating economy agreed to support what we were calling the San Francisco Declaration, which commits us to increase women's access to capital and markets and to support new women entrepreneurs and business leaders. I was also proud to announce the Obama administration's landmark National Action Plan on Women, Peace, and Security, which will guide our government-wide efforts to increase women's participation in both preventing and resolving conflicts. And just last week, I was at my alma mater, Wellesley College, to open the inaugural session of the Women in Public Service Institute, which will help train women from around the world to become the leaders that many of their countries so desperately need. Our embassies are also working to advance the status of women as part of achieving our larger foreign policy goals. For example, in Kenya, we're training women activists and journalists to monitor early warning systems for violence. In Bosnia, we're helping teach aspiring women politicians the basics about communications, economic research, advocacy, and leadership. And we're helping women in Kyrgyzstan learn about starting businesses and organizing in their communities. In all of our efforts, we are looking for partners in advocacy and consulting with local experts, because we know governments cannot do this work alone.
At home and abroad, we need civil society organizations, religious communities, business leaders, and strong voices to speak out for the rights and opportunities of women and children. And we need groups of dedicated and concerned citizens to fill the gaps between governments and the people they are supposed to serve. And it is only through these robust partnerships and honest discussions that we can help deliver the kind of change we want to see in the world. And that's a fact that the National Partnership has proven over and over again here at home. So today, what I want to say to you more than anything else is this: keep going. For more than 40 years, you've been protecting the most vulnerable among us and holding us all to account when we are not living up to our own American values. And in the process, you improve the lives of countless women and help make that future a better place for them and their children. We need that same dedication as we work to improve the status of women around the world, which does come back to us in promoting our values, our interests, and our security. There are so many brave women and men who are on the front lines of this struggle for equality and rights and opportunity. I meet them all over. Sometimes I meet them because I'm told if I take a picture with them, they may not be killed. Sometimes I'm asked to go somewhere with them to demonstrate that the United States believes what they are doing is important. Sometimes I find myself marveling as I meet with those who have been imprisoned and tortured, beaten and abused for saying the most obvious things. That girls and women have a right to an education, a right to health care, a right to exercise their full God-given potential. That children are not chattels, that they in and of themselves have dignity that must be recognized. I have a lot of heroes and heroines around the world. You saw one of them, Ela Bhatt, in the video. She started an organization called the Self-Employed Women's Association in India many years ago. She was a very well-educated woman who had the options available to those in her class with her intellectual ability, but she chose to devote her life to organizing the poorest of the poor. Women who worked in fields, who sold vegetables, who were domestics, who struggled to eke out a living for themselves and their families. Women who were considered the last to eat, the least important. When I first visited her as First Lady in India, she took me to a big gathering where women had come from all over the region. Some of them had walked for 24 hours. And these were such beautiful women, brightly colored saris, beautiful chiseled features. And they were part of SEWA, the Self-Employed Women's Association. And that gave them strength, that empowered them to stand up to abusive mothers-in-law, to stand up to abusive husbands, because all of a sudden they were bringing in money. They'd been given a small microcredit loan, and they were working to enhance the quality of life for their own families. When I was back in India as Secretary of State, I once again met with a large group of SEWA, and this time learned they had more than 1 million members. They had just conducted an election to elect their leadership. They had moved into small businesses, not just the most basic kind of subsistence income production. And they were a force. And they were being looked at by those around the world who saw what they had accomplished. And I saw that firsthand because when I first went to South Africa and went to Cape Town, I was taken out to a housing project, scrap land that women from the townships had claimed as their own after learning about Sewa, and began building a village. Again, the poorest of the poor, living in tar paper shacks, who wanted something better. When I went back to Cape Town as Secretary of State, I visited the second such settlement that they were building and helped to plant the flowers that were in the yards of those who lived there. This didn't happen overnight, but it could not have happened without determined, dedicated, persistent, meddling, bothersome, annoying women leaders. And we have to be not only willing to continue our own efforts here at home, to try to finish the unfinished business, but to also remember that civil society, non-governmental organizations, volunteerism is one of America's great exports. I see the results everywhere. And this national partnership has set a very high standard. So we need to keep pushing on those closed doors, keep chiseling away at those barriers, keep working together toward a world where every little girl and boy grows up believing that there is a future for them, that if they work hard, if they do their part, they too can make a difference in their own lives and the lives of their larger communities. I've had such an extraordinary experience over the course of my adult life. None of it could have been predicted. Young women ask me all the time, well, what did you do to prepare for all these different roles? And I always say, look, I got a good education, and I've worked hard, and I've been very lucky, after all that hard work, to have opportunities that I really appreciated, to make my own contributions, to give back to my own country, and then increasingly to try to spread that message globally. But I know very well that a lot of what I have benefited from came about because of the advocates and the organizations like the one we honor here today. Nobody does it alone. Nobody should want to do it alone. The collaboration, the excitement, the adventure, the fun of working with the National Partnership, working with so many of you represented here, has been a great joy to me. And I hope that in the next 40 years, we will be able to look back and see all that has been accomplished here in our country. You know, a lot of the loudest voices are last gasps. The world is changing. It's too open. There's too much information. People anywhere now know what's happening everywhere. That is both a great burden, but also a tremendous opportunity. So let us not grow weary in doing what we believe is right and smart here at home and around the world for women and families. Thank you all very much.